Hello and welcome to Slice of Ace. I was on YouTube the other day and this video popped up in my recommendations. Titled, Asexual is not LGBT. I try not to get annoyed by things, but when I saw that in all capitals, it really frustrated me. So I clicked on the video and I was ready to be annoyed, and I watched it, and I realised that I wasn't annoyed. It surprised me, because the person who made the video, they were respectful, and yes, they expressed their opinion, which was counter to mine, but it was done thoughtfully, and they did have respect for the ace community, even though they didn't believe that asexuality belonged in the LGBT plus community. I'm leaving the link of that video in the description, but I recommend that if you do watch it with an open mind, and just because their opinion may differ from yours, don't jump the gun and get angry and get annoyed. But don't get me wrong, I disagree with the opinion given in the video. I do think that asexuality should be allowed to be part of the LGBT plus community. So, this is quite a controversial topic, and that video, which I've just been talking about, is what prompted me to make this video. I generally don't like to get involved in these sort of discussions because there is a lot of controversy, and from that brews a lot of hate and arguments and disputes, and generally discussions which aren't particularly productive to making change or coming to shared decisions. But since I'm in the position to talk about asexuality and the ace community, I think that I should voice my opinion on this. So, let's invite the controversy and talk about whether asexuality should be welcome in the LGBT plus community. The first thing that we have to consider is that asexuality is more complicated than other orientations. For one, asexuality is often separated into romantic and sexual orientation, which is something which isn't done in the wider world of sexuality. So, I'd like to start by discussing homoromanticism, biromanticism, panromanticism. Because, in my opinion, if you argue that a gay person, a lesbian person, a bi person, a pan person is part of the LGBT plus community, by extension, someone who has that romantic orientation, someone who is homoromantic, for example, like me, should also be welcome in that community. And I've seen a lot of people who think that asexuality isn't a part of the LGBT plus community say that unless you are homo, bi, pan, romantic. So it generally seems agreed upon that even if you are asexual, that if your romantic orientation is something that would be included in the LGBT plus community anyway, then you're allowed in. But then that leaves us with heteroromantic aces, aro aces, and other ace-spec individuals, such as demisexuals, people who identify as grey asexual, etc., etc. In my opinion, the LGBT plus community should be a safe space for anyone who identifies with a minority orientation or gender identity. The reason this safe space is necessary is because these people who aren't straight, who aren't cis, they face discrimination and issues because of who they are. I think the problem is that people don't recognize that asexuals and other ace-spec individuals don't have exactly the same problems as, say, a gay person would. Aces haven't had to fight for marriage equality and the right to adopt children, for example, but that doesn't mean that our problems should be ignored just because maybe they're not as visible to everyone else as, say, marriage equality. For example, it is incredibly difficult to have a successful dating life as an allo ace, just because of the hypersexualization of society and the expectation that in a relationship you'll have sex, and the general misunderstanding and misconceptions surrounding asexuality. And that's another thing. Misrepresentation of asexuals is still rampant within media and in society in general. Recently, there was an article published by, I believe, Wellbeing Health. Hi, Future Daniel here. It was actually Everyday Health, and I'll leave a link to the article in the description below if you want to laugh at how terrible it is. Okay, back on to past me. That is getting a lot of flack from the ace community because of the way it talks about asexuality. And on the more severe side, there's things like corrective rape. This is a problem for some asexuals, and you can't ignore that. And something like rape is traumatic, and it affects someone's life so profoundly that it is important to talk about. And extending that to a romanticism, there is a constant pressure that you should be in a relationship. That if you aren't in a relationship, you are failing, and you are unsuccessful at life. And this can be incredibly damaging to people who are arospec or who aren't necessarily interested in a relationship for whatever reason. And then issues can also arise from just not being accepted anywhere. We're seen as odd by straight people, something which isn't different, but then if you're not accepted into LGBT plus spaces, then where do you fit? It's not like there's widespread ace spaces and ace communities that you can gather around. Sure, there are some, but people might find solace in being in an LGBT plus community, which should be welcoming and accepting of everyone there. And if they're turned away, it can hurt. In a sense, the problem is that aces are invisible. There isn't a outwardly facing persona that asexuality gives off. For example, you can recognize that someone is gay from who they have a relationship with. But with asexuality, it's something private, it's something personal for most people. So it's something they're only really going to discuss with their partner if they are in a relationship, for example. So I think that people who don't spend a lot of time with in ace communities and who don't really understand the kind of struggles that we face may think that we don't have any problems because of a lack of sexual attraction, which is, in my opinion, factually incorrect. But I do understand from that point of view why people would think that there is no baggage that comes with asexuality. So it's the thought of people disregarding what they can't see and thinking that it doesn't exist because they don't witness it themselves. And it has always baffled me that this is a problem in the first place. To me, the LGBT plus community is a safe space, like I said earlier. It's something that should be welcoming and accepting and somewhere where you can be yourself without having to worry about being judged by others. But the more I've learned about the LGBT plus community, the more I've realised that it's not like that all the time. And honestly, it saddens me that there is so much gatekeeping, especially towards the ace community. If someone finds comfort and enjoys being part of the community, it seems wrong to push them out or not let them in the first place. And I don't understand whom it hurts to let asexuals and asexuality be a part of the LGBT plus community. I don't know whether it's just not wanting to dilute the message of the LGBT plus community or it's something else entirely, but it doesn't seem right, in my opinion. All that said, I'm not going to stamp my foot and say asexuals are part of the LGBT plus community, disagree with me and I will decapitate you. because that's not very nice, but also because I think that being in the LGBT plus community should be a personal choice. If you want to be associated with that, and you are part of a sexual or gender minority, then I don't see why you shouldn't be welcomed and accepted. So, to round this all off, my answer to whether asexuals should be part of the LGBT plus community is that asexuality is a minority sexual orientation. And to say that the asexual community doesn't face discrimination and issues related to their orientation is factually incorrect. Asexuals should be welcome in the LGBT plus community, but it should be a personal choice as to whether they associate themselves with the community. But that's just my opinion. Hopefully you picked up from the start of the video, I don't really mind if you disagree with me, as long as we can have a civilized conversation about why we disagree and why we have the opinions that we have. So, if you have something to add on this controversial topic, then feel free to comment down below. And that doesn't just apply to this video. If you ever want to disagree with me or tell me that I'm wrong, please do. I like criticism because it helps me be better. Now that I've spoken for going on half an hour about this fascinating and controversial topic, if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. I post videos every Saturday, so if you want to see more, then feel free to subscribe. That is all I had to say today. Have a wonderful day, and I shall see you next time.